right, welcome back, everybody. If you've participated in either of the first two sessions, welcome back. If this is your first session viewing, then welcome. I am Steve Parker-Zielinski, the superintendent at SouthSeneca. The purpose of these sessions is to try and present as many details as we can fit in an hour so that common questions get answered and specific questions get answered as they come rolling in. I do want to thank anybody that's been using that SouthSeneca Open at southseneca.org email address. It's really helpful for us to receive those questions. We've been making a big effort to provide a personal response to every single one of those questions that comes in. And it's the way that we're collecting questions to be able to address in these sessions. If you were tuning in yesterday, we had a little bit of an issue at the beginning of the meeting with the sound quality. And so as I'm thinking about today's session, I really don't want to just do a complete repeat of the entire hour of yesterday, since we're providing a recording of that. That doesn't really seem all that productive. But I do want to kind of go over a little bit of what was happening at the beginning of that session, so that, addressing the fact that we had some sound issues. In the first few minutes of yesterday, I was basically saying that the categories of questions that we're receiving are starting to come in patterns. And so a lot of people are worried or curious about the same kinds of things, which is completely understandable. I was mentioning that the 7 categories that I get questions about very frequently are the social distancing plan in classrooms and the wearing of masks. That's 1. Questions about our daily screener tool that we'll use to monitor symptoms for everybody before they come in the building. That's 2. Plenty of questions about what the comparison of expectations are for those that are going to be in person versus those that are going to be at home. That goes for both staff and for students. And so we've been spending a lot of time answering those questions. Understandably, there are particular questions about specialized classes. When we think about music classes, PE classes, art classes, those classes that tend to have the high degree of handling of physical materials or like particular kinds of activities, all of those almost need their own plans. So we're working with those departments to create those plans. And I'm hoping that during this hour, we can speak a little bit more specifically about those things. Questions about the way we're going to do meals in person. And so, we've shared a few times now that we're going to use the cafeteria spaces. We're pretty comfortable now with that decision that given the numbers that we're working with, that's the plan that makes the most sense. We could talk more about that. Questions about our disinfecting protocols. How are we going to do disinfecting on a regular basis, on a routine basis? What's going to happen during the day and what's going to happen between school days? And then finally, a whole category of questions about the particulars of our air circulating system, our air handling systems in the building. And those questions come from understanding more about the virus and the fact that there's understanding that the virus can be aerosolized and be in the air, especially in the indoor spaces. And so, questions about the way that our air handling system circulates the air, and what the risks are for people that are in our physical spaces. So that's what I was talking about at the very beginning of yesterday's presentation. I'm going to shift again to the slides. I've removed some slides from yesterday because I want to focus in on some particular slides. I'm also resolved today to spread it around a little bit and let the rest of the team that's with me here speak to some of the particulars about the plan, things that we didn't get a chance to cover yesterday that we want to get on the record for today. Before I switch to the slides, let me talk about a few background items. We used our robocall system today to announce this meeting. And if you heard the 2 robocalls that I sent this afternoon, you know that the first one came through and it looked like the call was originating from Little Rock, Arkansas. As a matter of fact, the company that we are using for our new website and the mobile app originates in Little Rock, so that wasn't a coincidence. However, we did a quick fix to that, and future robocalls are not going to come from Little Rock, Arkansas. They'll come from us. The other piece I really want to address quickly here is the difference between what we're doing with these live streamed presentations versus sort of an open interactive Zoom meeting call. When we first publicized these last week, the intention was to do the second thing. We envisioned that we would have a publicly available link for a Zoom meeting, and that we'd have the chance to do more live interaction with the community. During last week's series of sessions around the state, including the session, by the way, that happened with the Ovid Public Library in our community, it was commonplace that those sessions went terribly wrong with, let's call them mischief makers, who interrupted the sessions in various fashions, some more inappropriate than others. And so when we were doing the strategy about, how we were going to try to mitigate against that, we settled on this version of doing the live streamed presentations, but still with the possibility of being able to receive questions from the community through that new email address system. I'm pleased that we've been able so far to keep up with those questions. I believe at this moment, with maybe 1 or 2 exceptions for things that came in the last few minutes, that we've been able to already do a personal answer to everybody who wrote into that, and we will continue to do that. I want to repeat what I said yesterday, which is that we're committed to getting your questions answered and connecting with you about the questions that you have. We can do that by email, yes. We can do that with meetings, yes. But we can also follow up with personal phone calls. And everybody that you see on the screen here with me has been doing exactly that for the whole summertime. So, most of our activity is either in planning meetings this summer or following up with people to get their questions answered. And so I just want to recognize the work of this team right here to do all of that. The engagement from the faculty and the staff this summer has been pretty remarkable. As you're probably not surprised to hear, in a public school system, the months of July and August are usually the quiet months. We use the time to get our buildings ready for the following school year. And this summer of 2020 has been as unique as the whole rest of the year has been. And the months coming up in the future will be as well. Last little bit before I get over to the slides again. I am starting to hear news coming from the Ithaca area. I understand that an announcement was made today or yesterday that Ithaca College has now made the decision to go fully remote in the fall. I understand that even though Cornell University's system that they've put in place is very robust, that there's a significant amount of pressure for them to follow suit and potentially also go remote. I don't believe that decision has been made yet. But these decisions of the bigger institutions tend to have a ripple effect in the region. And so, one of the things that I've been talking about with people is that for those schools and institutions that are making this decision to go fully remote, the thing that they have in common is how large they are. We know from the plan that we're putting together at South Seneca how enormously challenging it is to be thinking about our population of families, students, and staff. And we're dealing with small numbers. And so you can appreciate that when you've got buildings that might have 1,500 students in it instead of 200, that those challenges just magnify. And what I believe you're seeing with these larger places is the recognition that they just can't put together a safe plan with the numbers that they've got. Contrast that, please, with South Seneca. Our numbers are very small. We know, and I think I said this yesterday, but it's worth repeating. We know that we have the full spectrum of requests in our community right now. For those that are feeling like this is too risky of a thing to take on, to come back in person, it's an important part of our plan that you get to have that choice to be able to learn completely remotely. And all you have to do is indicate that that's your decision, and our plan accommodates that decision for you. So you don't have to come into the building at all. But on the other side, we have plenty of families that are, urging us to reopen and allow for in-person instruction again. And that the fact of remaining quarantined and staying at home is a trauma all of its own. And so, the school system has always provided a safe place to be and a huge support system within the buildings. And people have missed that during the last 6 months. So the opportunity to be able to come back is one that many of our families are anxiously waiting for. And the fact that we have the numbers that we have means that we can offer a plan we feel good about, and that we feel is safe for people to come back to. And I'll repeat what I said again yesterday, which is that we will never be able to promise 100% guarantee that there will be no transmission of the virus in our programs. But the system that we've put in place and the protocols that we've put in place are making it as safe as we think it's reasonably possible to do. And all we do every day is look to fill in the gaps for any places where there are those. I am determined to turn it over to a few of my team here. But before I do that, let me now switch to these slides. I think you can see them on your screen. I'll just confirm that with my team members here. Can you see the slide screen now?
Yes.
That's a yes?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. All right, great. Okay. So I'm gonna switch on my screen. What I'm seeing on my screen is the full presentation mode. Again, these are the slides I showed yesterday, and just from a very quick introductory standpoint, I did update the number of active cases to August 17th's numbers. 2 active cases in the county. We've experienced 76 confirmed cases so far, with 71 of those recovered, and we did have 3 deaths in the county. And so right now, at the moment, we only have 2 active cases that we know about. I did update the Finger Lakes region slide. The way that you read this slide, this is coming from the New York Forward website. This is the August 17th version of it. The daily infection rate, the 7-day average actually dipped a little bit down to 0.6%. The blue bars are the number of overall tests done each day. And the orange line is the percentage of those tests that are coming back positive. So that's the 0.6 7-day average. This particular slide indicates at the bottom, you can see 0.5% in the region. This is important for us because we're attached to the Finger Lakes region. And this is the data that will drive whether the governor steps in and disallows us from being even able to offer the in-person instruction. I'll just say it one more time that health and safety is a primary objective of our plan. By us offering an in-person model, we can only do that if we feel safe about it. Right now, we're planning for a hybrid model, and anybody that's been paying attention to any bit of it knows that our plan means that we're going to arrange for the pre-K through 6 students to be in person 5 days a week, if that's their choice to come in person. And at the secondary level, it'll be less than 5 days a week for most students, unless they have particular needs for that. Staff that are in person will be working their regular work weeks. As I go to this slide here that shows, again, I'll emphasize very, very rough estimates for what we're expecting. I mentioned yesterday that Adam Rundell has indicated to me that with his latest estimates, the numbers in the elementary school might be a little bit bigger per grade level, about 5 more per grade level possibly. Although, we are experiencing a lot of fluctuation even this week as we ask more follow-up questions from people. But what I did want to do is give Adam the chance right now, Adam, to speak a little bit more specifically about what's happening in the plans for the elementary building. And when we spoke this morning, you indicated that you really wanted to talk especially about the plan at the earliest grade levels, like the primary level of pre-K, K, and 1. So why don't you go ahead and do that now, Adam?
Yep. So the pre-K K1 plan for the students that are in person, we know that population of students, they're going to have the hardest time with all the COVID safety rules that we have in place, with masks, with social distancing, being 4, 5, 6 years old. It's against what they want to do. So it's going to be hard to carry out the safety plans. So in speaking and planning with the pre-K K1 teams, we've come up with the plan to group each classroom into 2 groups of students. So instead of having 12 to 14 kids in a classroom all day long, we're going to break those students up into 2 groups. So in the classroom, they get 6 or 7 students in the classroom for half a day with their classroom teacher. At that point, they'll get all their direct instruction provided by their teacher in a small group. With everything, we're encouraging outdoor time as much as possible, but if they're in the classroom, they can spread out a lot easier with 6 or 7 students in the classroom. They can, they're not going to wear a mask for 7 hours straight. If a student takes their mask off, they get frustrated, they take it off, because they're 5 years old, and there's only 5 other kids in the classroom, and they're all 10 feet apart. It's not the end of the world, where we can talk to them, work with them, get the mask back on. As opposed to if there were 14 kids in the classroom, then that is a problem. So that's what we're looking at for that. The other half of the day, they'll be with their cohort of other grade level students. So that could be up to 15 kids or so. But we'll have those times where they're having lunch, recess, special areas, where we have some safety plans in place for the special areas. And we've rebuilt the master schedule to make sure that there's no no grade levels basically running into each other. They stay with their cohorts, their pods the entire time. We've staggered breakfast, staggered lunch, and we have multiple locations for those areas, so they can just be with their grade level and spread out as much as possible. However, with the pre-K K1, with that half-day plan, where they switch. You know, we are offering a full day program for our students, but we have some families that like the idea of only sending their kid for that half day that they're with their classroom teacher, and that cutoff time is around 11:30 or so. It's a little specific to each grade level, but we are accommodating that, and that. And if you want to send your kid just for the morning or just for the afternoon session, and you can do a drop off or pickup midway through the day, we can definitely make that happen. And all you have to do is just let the main office know. We're trying to reach out to as many parents as possible, but if we haven't been successful reaching out to you, just give me a phone call, shoot me an email, whatever's easiest for you, and we will make that work for you.
Excellent. So just to emphasize a few of the points that Adam just made, that situation with the wearing of masks for our youngest students is unique in the district. Another category of questions that has been coming in is the way that we plan to enforce the mask rules for everybody else. So, you know, at a certain age, we feel like it's a reasonable expectation to ask them to wear their masks and to follow the rules. And the only way that we can promise the health and safety of this plan is if we're extremely strict about enforcing those rules. These are not rules that we can negotiate about. For anybody that is going to resist the rules, we're going to need to remove them from the in-person environment, whether that's for a temporary basis or for a longer-term basis. We're going to need really good understanding from everybody that there's a zero tolerance policy for wearing the masks indoors at an age-appropriate expectation. When we talk about mask breaks, we're talking mostly about being outside. And then, of course, you don't wear a mask while you're eating. And so, you know, we'll set up the cafeteria spaces so that we can do that safely. Adam mentioned the concept of pods and cohorts. This is really important to reinforce as well, because there's been a fair number of questions about whether it might be a better plan to have students stay in place and teachers come to them rather than let students travel in the building. And so our answer to that is a little bit of a combination of those two things. We're not going to completely eliminate the idea of students traveling from room to room. But what we will do is to create this cohorting situation where we're going to be paying very close attention to keeping grade level cohorts together and not having them intermix with cohorts from other grade levels. When they moved into a more common space, that's going to enhance or increase the level of attention that we'll do to doing the disinfecting between sessions, so that when we are going to be using like a common music space or a PE space, then we'll be paying close attention to doing disinfecting before and after the new cohort moves in. And in that way, you know, we can contain these cohorts. And the reason it's important is because of the contact tracing plan. In the event that we have a suspected case of COVID or a positive case of COVID, and when Seneca County facilitates the contact tracing, we'll be able to say that students only had contact with students that are in their particular grade level. And that'll facilitate or make it easier to do that contact tracing. I do want to have Stacy Clark jump in now. We mentioned yesterday that IEPs remain in force. It's a legal document. These are under a whole slew of federal and state laws and regulations. And so Stacy's job as the director of special programs is to ensure that the continuum of services happens for each of our students with an IEP, and that we attend to all related services. So I want to give Stacy a chance to just address that in a little bit more specific ways right now.
Sure,
Stacey.
thanks. So all students will have a case manager that will oversee their program and their needs. And for students who are in grades pre-K through 6, the services will look very similar to those services in the past. For students in grades 7 through 12 who will be in person, they will have the in-person services while they're in school, and when they're at home remote learning, they will have services provided through special education at that time. For students who are completely remote, those case managers will work very closely with families and with the students to provide services. But daily communication is going to be really important between that case manager and the student and the family, just to make sure all the needs are being met. Related services will also continue. If the student is in school, those services will happen then. If a student is remote, then the services will be provided via teletherapy, and those will be set up with the families. And again, families will be receiving information from the case manager shortly.
Excellent, thank you. I want to emphasize at this point here, again, that families have the choice to make about whether they're going to send their student in person or have them work from home. So we're going to spend a good amount of time in this session to revisit the topic of what the difference is and how even the secondary in-person students are going to have a piece of their program to be remote and what you can expect for that to look like. Before I leave this particular slide, though, I just want to say again that for grades 7 through 12, the plan is to bring students in mostly 2 days a week in person for those that are choosing to be in person. And that means that the other 3 days of the week, they'll be working remotely. The numbers will be pretty low in the building at any particular time at those grade levels. With students that still are able to access their BOCES program in person, that means that they'll be out of the Ovid building and there'll be fewer people in the Ovid building at any one time, and that'll allow us to do a safer plan. We've received a few questions in the last couple of days about the policy change that the Board of Education talked about at the August 12th meeting. And that they indicated their intention to pass a new policy beginning in September for just this particular school year. So I do want to talk a little bit more in detail about that. It's going to affect the senior class only. And really, it's only going to affect those students that are going into the school year with 19 credits finished already. At SouthSeneca, the minimum requirement for graduation is 22 credits. There are specific credits that you must have, sequences, assessments that must be passed. I want to emphasize that none of that has changed. Even under this policy, the graduation requirements are exactly the same as they always have been. The only thing that we're talking about in terms of this policy change is the minimum criteria for being an enrolled student at SouthSeneca. Around 2016 or so, the board made a new policy that said that to be an enrolled student, you have to have at least 5.5 credits on your schedule plus PE. And so that would make you a full-time student at SouthSeneca. That policy happened because in a typical senior year with so many students only needing a few credits to get to the graduation requirements, we found that seniors would lighten up on their schedule, and what it would create in their schedule was a lot of open time. We didn't really want that. So the policy changed so that we had to make sure that every senior had the 5.5 credits. But with the program that we're running this year, where students that are coming in person might only be in for 2 days a week, that situation isn't really a factor. When they come in for an in-person day, they'll have a decent sized schedule to interact with the teachers that that are their teachers in the building. And so one of the things that we know is that many of the students that have accrued this many credits, what they're doing simultaneous to getting their high school diploma is also accumulating college credits, because we offer the dual credit classes with TC3 to be able to pick up a lot of college credit as upperclassmen. Most of those seniors are not going to be interested in dropping those classes. They're taking them for a reason, and they'll probably keep their schedules very full as usual. We just wanted the option for those that are not in that situation to be able to maintain their enrolled status, keep their graduation requirements where they are, but maybe take only 3 courses instead of 5. And it might ease up the burden of running this plan if we're keeping track of fewer courses in the plan this year. I've said 150 times now that the 2020-21 school year is going to be completely unique, unlike any school year we've ever experienced before. And this is just one of the ways that the board is making available a little bit of flexibility to work with our students to possibly make the plan a little bit easier. Oh, I want my slide switch. There we go. I want to turn now to the, again, the comparison between what it's going to be like to be in person versus what it's going to be like to be at home. I'm going to flip the order today because I think I spent more time talking about in person than talking about remote. And so today I'm going to do it in the other direction. Talking about students that are going to be learning remotely, and also the secondary students who are going to have part of their part of their school week remote as well. So this is going to apply to just about everybody. I'll say it again, that even for the students that are in person, we're going to be setting up an online environment to fall back on, just in case we ever need to switch to fully remote instruction. It will already be in place. And so what I'm going to say right now about remote students could end up being also
It looks like we lost Steve for a minute. Everybody hear me? Okay, while Steve tries to get back on, he was going to turn to me in a little bit, so I will cover some of the stuff from the middle high school. And if anybody has any questions, they can email them to me, and I'll try to answer them during this time frame. I just want to stress that we feel that. Oh, we got Steve back.
Oh, did you lose me?
Yeah, we lost you.
Oh no!
You're gonna have to repeat what you just said, Steve.
How long was I gone?
About 2 minutes.
Yeah, about 2 minutes. I started to cover a little bit of stuff, but I didn't get into it. So go ahead.
Oh, you did. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I had no clue. I was just talking to myself for 2 minutes. Okay. So let me readjust then. Tim, you said that you filled the gap a little bit.
Well, I started to, but I didn't really get into anything. So
all right. Then to allow me to regroup, let me just turn it to you for 1 minute. Okay.
Okay.
The thing that I was talking to myself about was the idea of what it's going to be like to be working from home. And so I do want to emphasize one more time that everybody does have that option, and that at the secondary level, we're going to be working in this hybrid model with both kinds of students. And even the students that are in person from grade 7 through 12 will be having this dual experience at the same time. So Tim, let me give you a chance right now while I regroup for you to just talk about you know, we're asking for a final decision from people this week, as much of a final decision as you can give us by August 21st on Friday. And using the data that we have coming out of Friday, we're going to start working on these schedules at the secondary level on Monday. So Tim, why don't you just talk about that for a little bit?
Okay, I will be getting another short survey out. I hate to over survey folks, but what we did earlier in the summer is we put a survey out and we asked parents to answer a number of questions. And we've got answers from most people on whether they plan to be in person or virtual. There were a number of people that we didn't get answers from, so we made a bunch of calls. We've got, I'd say about 90% of those calls done. I'd say we got about 95 to 97% of our student body, the families answered for those kids, whether they're going to be in person, whether they're going to be in virtual, what their transportation needs are, and that sort of thing. With what people have heard over this week and other things through contacting you, contacting me and other people, you know, we're thinking that some people might change their mind one way or the other. So I will put a short survey out there and ask people who, I'm not asking everyone to answer it, but if you've changed your mind on those answers, you can let us know. We will update those records because it's going to really help us to know what students are going to be in the building and what kids are going to be virtual. And then it's going to help us build those schedules. It's, you know, it's obvious that our schedule building process is much later this year than it has in the past, but I'm very confident in Mr. Green and the team of people who are going to be building those things next week. And we'll be able to, once we have that final information from parents and students, we'll be able to build those schedules. Not easily. It's going to be extremely difficult, but we'll do our best to make it work.
All right, great. Thanks, Tim.
Okay.
So here's what I think I was saying when I was offline, I guess. I was talking about the experience of learning from home. In most cases, we're going to be using Google Classroom as our online classroom environment. I mentioned that there are exceptions to that. Some of the elementary staff has had some luck with Facebook Live sessions. We have a couple of teachers that have become familiar with different platforms, and they'll want to use those with their students. But our most common platform is going to be Google Classroom. No matter what the platform is, though, we're going to need to spend a lot of time at the very beginning of the school year just making 100% sure that we have good contact information with everybody. And so in the event that we end up fully remote, we want to have good confidence that we have a way to be in touch with everybody. The student who's working from home is going to be interacting with their teachers and their peers and class resources a few different ways. The way that we envision this this year compared to what we had in the spring is a little bit tighter of a schedule for online learning. We want to make sure that we have particular times when the class is going to be all together. Students will know what those times are. They know that the expectation is going to be to sign in at that time. Those sessions might not be as long as regular classes because we do have to pay attention to overall screen time. But that'll be in combination also with side sessions with smaller groups. And also possibly individual sessions just with the teacher and the student. We're going to have an attendance system in place where you can only be marked present if you are present and engaged in the class. And the teacher can interact with you in real time. That's going to be the criteria for being marked present for the class. And so in the course of a normal school week, there'll be this mixture of times where you're on the screen live with your classmates and your teacher, and other times where you're offline and just working on assignments. But either way, you're going to have strong connection with your classmates and your teachers working remotely. It's very important to emphasize that someone working remotely is going to have the exact same curriculum goals and grading criteria as everybody else, including the people that are coming in person. Last year, as you know, in the spring, we did a system for pre-K through 8, where we just did reporting back to parents in a narrative format. And we only used grades for the credit-bearing classes in the high school. All of that changes this year, and we're back to our normal report card system. We will use regular report cards throughout pre-K through 12, the same way that you're used to in other years. The circumstances going into 2021 are different than what we had in the spring. We need to have a school year, and we need to account for the school year in terms of attendance, grades, and expectations. And that'll be true no matter where you are, no matter where you're learning, whether you're in person or not. I mentioned yesterday that we really do have to pay very, very close attention just to the simple question for everybody involved, which is, how are you? How are you doing with this? Do you have particular needs, social and emotional needs? This is the moment in yesterday's presentation, and it's the same moment in today's presentation, where I'd just like to quickly introduce again Tina Halleck, who's joined us on the meeting. Tina is what we call our family navigator. She isn't really a SouthSeneca employee, but we contract for her services as an outside entity in what we call a family navigator. Tina, you did a great job yesterday of introducing yourself and what you do. I just want you to do that again, if you would.
Sure. I don't know if I can do it exactly like yesterday, but I will. So I am a parent who has had a child who struggled. I thought it was very important that we create a role that I support other parents. And I think this time we're in right now is so unprecedented that even if you've never thought about your mental health before, your support system, this is the time that we all need support. And I think working better together is what I'm hearing here. So I want you to understand that, number one, I don't communicate with the school. Any one of these people will tell you if you contact me, they don't know about that. I can help you hold some hard stuff. Sometimes just talking about your big feelings is important, and I can do that. So I text, I email, you can call me, we Zoom. We actually have group parent meetings, which is helpful to talk to other parents about how you're feeling. And importantly, if you haven't made your decision and you want a sounding board, I am happy to support you in thinking about this. I never have an agenda. I'm kind of that bridge between the school and the parent, and you do all the work. I just support you in doing that. So yeah, was that about the same as last night? I don't know.
No, that's good. That's great. I just want to add one extra piece, Tina, if you don't mind. If a person wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Really, I'm quite flexible. The only thing I don't do anymore is in-person meetings quite yet. We probably will do that at some point, but you can text me. So here's where you'll find my information easy. There's a family tab on the website. My email's on there. My phone number's on there. You can call me, you can text me, whatever works for you. So
excellent. Thanks. So in addition to Tina, we do have SouthSeneca employees that do the same work of supporting everybody in the SouthSeneca community. I am very proud to say at SouthSeneca, our team is excellent. As we've experienced the pandemic together, it's been remarkable and inspiring to watch the work of our guidance people, our counselors, our psychologists, our social workers, and the way that they have been connecting with students and families, how far they go above and beyond to do that. And we feel really, really good that the support is there for you if you need it. And in some cases, we just have to know that you need it. You have to reach out to somebody and just let them know that you have that need. And then we can spring into action to try and get you what it is that you need. This goes for our staff as well as our kids. It goes for our parents and families, as well as the kids and the staff. We're really committed to it. In some ways, I think that it's one of the things that we do best at South Seneca. In my career at South Seneca, one of the things that I love the most about this community is the way that we do come together in a crisis for people that need that. You know, there have been countless stories over the years about the way that this community has stepped up for each other in order to meet those needs. And our hearts are really broken when we find out that a need was out there that we didn't know about. So in the highest possible way we can, we want to emphasize that the support system is here. Just please reach out. I was in a couple of building faculty meetings this week, and we talked in both of those faculty meetings, again, about the success in education is all built around relationships. I would be remiss, as I'm praising the guidance and the counseling staff, if I didn't also mention that the front lines of our education system is teacher to student. We can multiply what I just said times 1,000 when you think about all of the relationships between teachers, our support staff, everybody else that works in the building with our kids and their families. And this is the thing that will make our plan successful, is these relationships, this communication, and the back and forth of how we interact with one another to make sure that the needs are getting met. It's going to be a crazy school year. Things might change for us, even with our plan in September. They might change in October. And then we're already sort of thinking ahead about what happens when the weather turns cold. Because, you know, in the early stages of our plan, we're going to be using a lot of outdoor activities while weather permits. And in some significant ways, the plan will switch when it gets cold outside and the weather isn't going to allow for that. So, you know, we're thinking about that now. We know that September is going to look one way and the rest of the year is going to look another way. And we want to try to be ready for all of it. Let me just skip ahead here a little bit. I hope this isn't how I got lost last time. Am I still with everybody? Can my team confirm?
You're with us.
You can hear me? Very good. Very good. Just checking. I want to use the last 10 minutes now to come back around to the medical side of this. The idea that in order for us to do this plan, we have to have protocols in place to monitor symptoms and to have plans for what happens when symptoms present that are concerning to us. So I'll mention again, the whole thing is going to start with this daily screening tool. I should say one more time that this is just the beginning of the plan for monitoring symptoms. It's one way that we can say that everybody who comes into the building has gone through one series of questions before they come in. And many people have pointed out, you know, the gaps in this system, which are real, but it's just the first step. So we're going to have this daily screening tool. We're finally finishing up the contract on it so we can test drive it a little bit before school starts. We want to communicate out to everybody so you get a chance to practice it, and so that it's ready to go on day one. But the idea here is that before you get in our school building or on a school bus, you'll go through this screening tool, which will include confirming that your temperature is below 100. After that, when people are in the building, there's a whole plan for what we'll do when symptoms present, or when we have any concern about a particular individual. So we're going to have a little bit different protocols about getting to the nurse's office and waiting for attention from our school nurses. We want to make sure that we don't create any bottlenecks at the nurse's office. So we've been talking about the typical kind of traffic that we get, but also maybe what we can expect on a little bit of relief for that with our smaller numbers in the buildings. So we're hopeful that we can just control the number of people coming into the nurse's office, period. They'll do some triage there with their enhanced PPE. If they see symptoms that are any kind of a concern, we're going to move the individual to our new isolation spaces that we're creating in each building. So the person will go to the isolation space. I should mention that if that person is an adult with a car, it's possible that they won't go to the isolation space. They'll just go home if they're able to do that. Or we can facilitate getting them to a doctor right away if the symptoms are that much of a concern. But there might not be a reason to hold on to an adult in our isolation space. These are typically going to be for kids. If the kid is in the isolation space, we'll reach out to the parents to come and get them. And then we'll kick in a process where we're going to follow up on those symptoms and decide how concerned we are, whether that student can come back right away the next day if they pass the screening again, or if those symptoms are such that they're going to need to stay out for a period of time. And we're going to need to let the nurses mostly drive that process according to this flow chart here. Anytime that we get symptoms that are more of a concern, even to the threshold where we might be concerned about potentially a COVID case, then we will interact closely with the Seneca County Health Department to do their process that they would do. And so that would drive COVID testing. And then we would wait for whether that test came back negative or positive, and then get into the protocols that Seneca County Health uses for all of the cases in the county. One of the questions we got is when does a cohort or a household move into quarantine based on symptoms? And the answer to that is when we receive a confirmed positive case. Lots of questions related to whether we're going to be proactive with COVID testing. And I need everybody to understand that the answer to that is no. Right now, there is no mandate for universal COVID testing for people in the building. We actually don't have the mechanism to be able to make that happen, even if we did, except to send everybody into the county to get COVID testing. And that is not part of the plan right now. It's a reasonable question to ask about an asymptomatic carrier where we don't know that they're carrying the virus, but there is no mechanism that we have to do universal COVID testing. And it's probably important here to just mention that even if you do a COVID test, there's a period of time where you're waiting for the result. Everybody knows about false positives and false negatives. Even if you test negative, that is a moment in time. And 2 days later, you could have been exposed somewhere else. And so that negative result really doesn't mean a lot a couple of days later. We certainly wouldn't have a system where we have regular COVID testing like a professional sports league does. And so we have to rely on the expertise at the Seneca County Health Department to guide us through this flow chart for the way that we monitor symptoms and react to the symptoms that we see. If we ever do get a positive case, the question is, what happens then? I'll say it another time. It's all going to be directed by the health department. But as superintendent, it's my decision to make about which piece of the program that might get shut down or whether the whole thing gets shut down. So I would say that the options are that a cohort gets shut down, or a piece of the program gets shut down, or a building gets shut down, or the whole thing gets shut down in person. Those are sort of the menu of options that'll come my way when we have a decision to make about that. I have to say that, you know, a huge part of this plan is people being able to count on the buildings being there for kids and those that need it. And so while I have to keep that in mind, I also need to make decisions with an abundance of caution. I've been saying a few times this summer that I'm a superintendent that has closed school in the past for a low wind chill temperature because I'm worried about people out at the school bus. So in this situation, I want to be especially careful, and we won't hesitate to shut things down for a temporary basis if we need to, based on what we're faced with. But it's also important to say that a single positive case doesn't necessarily automatically mean things get shut down. We have to do the contact tracing and then make a decision from there. The process is pretty quick. I'm in good touch with Vicki Swinehart and Carrie Van Auken at the health department. And we're confident that under their guidance, we can run this flow chart and have a good plan for following up on any suspected or confirmed cases in the district. I didn't get to do this yesterday, and with just a couple of more minutes left in this session, I do want to take a couple of minutes just to again promote this new mobile app that we have available for everybody. You can tell that we're experimenting with the app, with the live feed and with the robocalls. But this is a way that we can get quick information out to people. And it would be nice to know that everybody has access to it on your mobile device. We're going to be working as we do this communication system to get good phone contacts with people so that your phone can receive our notifications when they come. And we see this as a key piece of our toolkit for getting information out to people. There is an ability in this tool for us to filter the message only to certain people. So I know from personal experience that if I send a robocall out to everybody, there's a significant number of people that don't like that if the robocall wasn't particularly pertinent to them. So this is a way that we can filter those messages down to just the people that need to get it. And we want to use this again and again and again this year to get the message out. The last thing I'll say, with only 1 minute to go in this session, is if I could take the time for just a second to reflect even on these two sessions that we just ran, plus the countless number of Google Meets and Zoom sessions that we've been running all summer and through the spring. You must understand that our experience is choppy with this. Yesterday, we had the issue with the sound. Today, we had the issue with the robocall where it came from Little Rock, Arkansas. During this session today, you lost me for a couple of minutes. As good as our technology is in this district, and it's very good, it's going to happen again and again and again that we're going to have these hiccups as we try to do remote learning and connecting to each other via technology and computers. And we have to understand that going in. I've shared that my experience with the virtual board meetings in the spring. I don't think we had a single board meeting without a technology issue. Whether it was connectivity from a person that was participating in the meeting or just some kind of temporary glitch that happened. It's going to keep happening. And so we're going to have to ride through it, rely on our communication network, and understand going in that it's not going to be perfect. But before I sign off here at 6 o'clock, I'll say one last time, please reach out. Please call us. We want to answer your questions. We want to talk to you. use that new email address. It's so much better if you can get in touch with one of us so that we can talk it out with you rather than just try and send out a generic message, and hope that the answer comes your way. So we'll continue to work together. It's something that we do well, and we're going to continue to do it no matter what happens with this plan. And so I want to thank you for taking the time to watch. And just because the sessions are over doesn't mean our communication is over. Keep it coming, and we'll keep doing everything we can to get you your answers. So thank you. I just appreciate everybody's patience and cooperation and communication. Thanks again.